He broke 300 miles per hour. He won championships in funny car and Top Fuel. He built race teams in NASCAR and IndyCar simultaneously. And at 81 years old, Kenny Bernstein, the king of speed, the Bud King, one of the most consequential figures in the history of American motorsport, has been largely absent from the sport that his career helped define. That absence, and everything that produced it, is the heartbreaking dimension of a story that the record books alone cannot fully tell. Kenny Bernstein was born on September 6, 1944, in Clovis, New Mexico, and built a competitive identity in motorsport that eventually became one of the most recognizable commercial partnerships in American professional sports. The Budweiser King, the bright red and silver livery that carried his funny car and later his Top Fuel dragster through the sport's most commercially visible era, was not simply a sponsor relationship. It was a brand fusion so complete that Bernstein and Budweiser became, for nearly 2 decades, essentially synonymous with what professional drag racing looked like at its most polished and most powerful. He brought to motorsport the sensibility of a successful Texas businessman, organized, commercially sophisticated, and acutely aware that the sport's viability depended on its ability to attract and retain the kind of major corporate partners that his Budweiser relationship represented. While other teams managed their competitive operations with the day-to-day urgency of results-first organizations, Bernstein managed his as a business that happened to race, a distinction that gave the Budweiser King program a commercial durability that outlasted the competitive cycles that ended most of his competitors' flagship sponsorships long before his own. Bernstein's competitive record across his NHRA career placed him among the sport's most accomplished active competitors from the mid-1970s through the early 2000s. He won 4 consecutive Funny Car World Championships from 1985 through 1988 with crew chief Dale Armstrong, a run of dominance that reflected both the competitive excellence of their combination and the technical innovation that Armstrong brought to every season they worked together. Those 4 consecutive titles placed Bernstein in the company of the sport's most elite multi-championship winners and gave the Budweiser King program its foundational competitive credibility. On March 20, 1992, at the Gator Nationals in Gainesville, Florida, Kenny Bernstein's Budweiser King Top Fuel dragster recorded a 301.70 miles per hour elapsed time, the first vehicle in the history of drag racing competition to officially exceed 300 miles per hour in a standing start quarter mile. The run shattered a barrier that had carried the same kind of psychological and cultural weight within the sport that the 4-minute mile had carried in track and field, and it produced a celebration across the NHRA paddock and beyond that reflected the genuine historical significance of what had just been accomplished. Bernstein himself received the milestone with the measured perspective of a businessman who understood that records are data points rather than endpoints. But the 301.70 miles per hour pass defined him publicly and permanently in a way that no subsequent achievement could recalibrate. He became the King of Speed, a nickname built on a specific afternoon in Gainesville that no subsequent driver's equivalent performance has ever fully displaced from the cultural memory of the sport. Every Top Fuel speed record that has followed, including the 343 mph range passes that Brittany Force produced in 2024, traces its narrative lineage to the run that Bernstein's team produced on that March afternoon in Florida. The dimension of Kenny Bernstein's post-championship career that best reveals who he actually was as a person and as a competitor is his sustained, genuine commitment to NHRA safety improvements following the deaths of multiple top-level competitors in the mid-2000s. When Eric Medlin, Darrell Russell, and Scott Kalita were killed in crashes between 2004 and 2008, Bernstein became one of the sport's most vocal and most substantive advocates for the regulatory and equipment changes that their deaths made morally necessary. June 21, 2008, Old Bridge Township Raceway Park, Englishtown, New Jersey. Scott Kalita's Top Fuel dragster experienced catastrophic engine failure at speed, and the car's compromised parachute system could not arrest its momentum before it struck the barrier beyond the shutdown area. Kalita, a 2-time Top Fuel world champion and one of the sport's most respected active competitors, died from his injuries that afternoon. He was 46 years old. For Bernstein, the loss carried a personal weight beyond the competitive grief that the entire paddock felt. He had known Scott Kalita across multiple seasons of shared competition, had raced against him, had been in the same paddock with him at dozens of events, and had the specific understanding of what Scott represented to his father Connie that only someone embedded in the sport's organizational culture for decades could fully hold. The immediate intensification of Bernstein's safety advocacy that followed Scott's death was not simply the response of a concerned competitor. It was the response of a man who had lost a friend and who channeled that grief into the most direct and productive form of action available to him, making the specific changes that might prevent the next loss from happening to someone else. Brandon Bernstein's drag racing career was built on genuine talent rather than simply inherited opportunity, and its abbreviated conclusion is one of the sport's most quietly overlooked sources of institutional sadness. The younger Bernstein won 16 NHRA national events across his career, competed at the championship caliber level that the Budweiser King and later Copart-sponsored programs made possible, and demonstrated across multiple seasons that the competitive intelligence and the mechanical instincts that had built his father's career were genuinely heritable. When the organizational economics of maintaining a competitive top fuel program without a primary sponsor of Budweiser's scale became increasingly difficult to sustain, Brandon's full-time competitive involvement contracted before it should have by any assessment of his talent or his competitive trajectory. He drove in reduced schedules, made intermittent appearances, and eventually stepped back from the regular competition that his ability warranted. For Kenny Bernstein, watching a son with genuine championship potential navigate the commercial realities that abbreviated his career was the particular heartbreak of a parent who understood exactly what the sport demanded and who could see the gap between what Brandon was capable of and what the organizational economics allowed him to fully pursue. 2 days after the close of the 2011 NHRA racing season, Kenny Bernstein announced his full retirement from NHRA racing as both driver and team owner, a comprehensive organizational exit that ended not just his personal competitive involvement but the entire organizational structure that King Racing had represented across multiple decades and multiple categories. The announcement was delivered with the same quiet dignity that Bernstein had brought to every significant career decision, and it was received by the sport with the particular silence that attends the formal ending of something genuinely significant. The specific timing, after Budweiser's departure had removed the commercial foundation that made the program's championship-level operation sustainable, meant that the retirement was as much an organizational acknowledgement of changed circumstances as it was a personal decision about competitive priorities. Bernstein had done everything the sport had to offer. He had won championships, broken the 300 miles per hour barrier, built a safety legacy, competed in NASCAR and IndyCar simultaneously, and produced a son who won 16 national events. The retirement announcement did not diminish any of those achievements. It simply placed a period at the end of a sentence that had been building toward its conclusion since the commercial landscape that sustained it began to change. The most honest accounting of what Kenny Bernstein's career left behind places the 300 miles per hour milestone and the 5 world championships within a larger legacy that includes the commercial blueprint he provided for how serious organizations attract and sustain major sponsorships in professional drag racing, the safety advocacy that contributed directly to a post-2008 era in which no pro-level NHRA driver has been killed, and the organizational standard that the Budweiser King program set for what a championship-caliber drag racing operation could look like when managed with business discipline alongside competitive ambition.